A six-time US champion Walter Browne was known for his great fighting spirit, tactical vision and immense energy. In this video I'm gonna show you his immortal game against Arthur Bisguier. In a well-known position, Browne sank into deep thought. No one could understand what he was thinking about. However, after thinking for 45 minutes, Browne came up with a fantastic novelty and made an unimaginable move which signaled the beginning of a deadly attack. Browne starts with e4, Bisguier plays the Petrov's defense, e5, knight f3, knight f6, knight takes e5, d6, knight f3, knight takes e4, d4, d5, bishop d3, bishop e7, short castle, knight c6, and Browne attacks the pawn, which is defending the knight. Black plays knight b4, attacking the bishop. Browne ignores it, capturing on d5. Now the black knight is under attack, so black captures on d3, getting the advantage of two bishops. And after queen takes d5, it turns out that besides the advantage of two bishops, black also has a better pawn structure, as white has an isolated pawn on d4. However, black has one problem. His king is still in the center. Browne develops his rook with the tempo, attacking the knight. That's why bishop f5, defending the knight. Browne attacks the knight one more time. Black captures on c3. Now the queen is under attack, so white must capture the knight with the queen. And it turns out that the c7 pawn is under attack. But it would be better for black to ignore this threat and think about the king safety instead. At the moment, black cannot castle, of course, because the bishop would fall, so it would be better for black to leave the c7 pawn unguarded and play bishop e6, preparing the castle. And in case white accepts the sacrifice, black can kick the queen out, followed by the short castle, after which the position would be equal. Of course, white is up a pawn, but black has a very good compensation for the pawn. Black has two very strong bishops. Black has better development, because white still hasn't finished the development of his queen side. The extra pawn white has is isolated, and also the black rook will join the game with a tempo. But instead of this, black made a move which at first sight makes perfect sense. Indeed, why to sacrifice a pawn if it's possible to retain it? Bisguier played c6, and the pawn controls the important blockading square, and black needs just to play bishop e6, after which the castle will be possible. Indeed, what can white do to prevent black from castling? He must continue his development, move his bishop in order to develop the bishop and connect his rooks. For example, if he plays bishop d2, black simply plays bishop e6. Of course, white can activate his rook with the tempo, but the queen simply retreats and bishop the second rook can move to e1, but it isn't dangerous because the light squared bishop is closing the e file. So that means white must play more energetically. While the black king is still in the center and the black bishop is still on f5 and not on e6, white must play very energetically and create immediate threats. And in this position, Browne thought for 45 minutes. And you can pause the video and try to find his fantastic move. So, white would love to, of course, double his rooks on the e-file in order to create tremendous pressure on this file, while the bishop is still on f5 and not on e6. But if he moves his bishop, it doesn't work. If he moves his bishop to d2, it doesn't work, because bishop d2 comes without a tempo. That's why Browne found a brilliant move, bishop h6. Placing his bishop right under the attack of the black pawn. But this move comes with a tempo, because white has created an immediate threat. Bishop takes g7. If black plays bishop e6 in order to castle, white would simply capture this important pawn. But what if black accepts the sacrifice and captures on h6? Now we can see the whole beauty of Browne's idea. The pawn has left the g7 square, and that means the white queen is x-raying the rook. At the moment, of course, this diagonal is closed, by the d pawn, which is blockaded by the queen, but white would play rook e5, attacking both the queen and the bishop, forcing the black queen to leave the blockading square and vacating the e1 square for the second rook, creating an immediate threat, threatening to capture on e7, after which black would also lose his queen, so black must play bishop e6, closing the rook's way, but now d5 would follow with great effect, attacking the bishop. The bishop, of course, cannot capture because the e7 bishop would fall and black would lose his queen, so black must capture with a pawn, but now Browne prepared deadly rook takes e6, attacking both the bishop and the rook. Black must capture, of course, but after queen takes h8 check, it turns out that if the king moves to e5, checkmate in 1 would follow, and if black plays bishop f8 instead, Browne prepared queen f6, preventing black from castling, and there is nothing black can do against the terrible attack on the e6 pawn. There is no way to defend this pawn. That's why after bishop h6, black played rook g8, defending the pawn and moving the rook away from the white queen's diagonal. Of course, Browne now plays rook e5, attacking the queen and vacating the e1 square for the second rook. The queen must retreat to d7. Rook e1 followed. Now white is threatening to capture on the e7, that's why bishop e6. And it seems that black has defended all his weaknesses. Indeed, how to continue the attack, how to increase the pressure, it isn't clear. Besides that, now that the rook has moved away from h8, black is threatening to capture the bishop. And what to do? The first reaction is to retreat the bishop, to save it. But if the bishop retreats, then simply bishop f6 is possible, and after the rook retreats, black can safely castle, solving all his problems. Browne came up with another brilliant counterintuitive move. The knight must join the attack. Knight g5. The move is counterintuitive because the knight is closing the bishop's diagonal. Now the bishop cannot retreat and it's doomed. It seems that the bishop is doomed, but the knight creates a new threat. Now, together with the rooks, the knight is attacking the e6 bishop. In case black captures the bishop, then of course knight takes e6 would follow, and after f takes e, rook takes e6, white is threatening to capture again, that's why black must play rook g7 to defend e7, but again d5 would follow with great effect. Attacking the rook, black must play king f8, defending the rook and unpinning his bishop, but Browne prepared the queen sacrifice. Queen takes g7 check. And after the mass exchanges on e7, of course, the rook endgame is winning for white because his rook is dominating the 7th rank. What else can black do after knight g5? Black can capture the knight, but in this case, white saves his bishop, again prevents black from castling queenside, and in order to castle, black must kick the bishop out of this diagonal, but it turns out that after long castle, again d5 follows with great effect. Black cannot capture with the pawn as it's pinned, so black must capture with the bishop, but the rook invades the 7th rank now with great effect. Black must move the queen, but after queen a5, it turns out that black is lost. There is nothing black can do against checkmating threats. If b6, checkmate in 1. If rook d7, then rook e8 check, and after the exchange of the rooks and rook d8, white can checkmate in 3 different ways. That's why after knight g5, Bisguier finally castled queenside. But now another blow followed. Knight takes f7, eliminating the pawn which was defending the bishop. That means white is threatening to capture on e6 now. Besides that, the knight is attacking the rook. In case black captures the bishop, then simply rook takes e6 would follow. Now the bishop is under attack, the rook is under attack, black must play rook e8, but after queen e3, white's tremendous pressure on the e-file would have reached its maximum. The bishop is under attack, it cannot move because the rook on e8 would fall. Besides that, white has another threat, knight d6 with a fork. And of course, again, the bishop won't be able to capture, as the catastrophe on e8 would follow. That's why after knight takes f7, black captured the knight. But of course, now rook takes e7 followed. Queen takes d4, rook takes f7, the queens are exchanged, and after g takes h, the game transitioned into the rook endgame. And white, of course, has a very big advantage. His rook is dominating on the 7th rank, and black pawns are doubled and weak. The first move that comes to mind, and most players would have made it without thinking, is rook takes h7, of course. But Browne plays precisely until the very end. After rook takes h7, black could have got some counterplay after rook d2, activating his rook, attacking a2. Instead, Browne played rook b1, attacking the b7 pawn. In case black moves this pawn, then white can capture on a7, and black cannot activate his rook anymore because of simple rook a8 check, after which black is losing his queen. That's why after rook b1, black played rook g5. Now Browne opens a luft for his king with a tempo, attacking the rook. The rook moves to b5 in order to defend the b7 pawn. A pair of rooks is exchanged, and now, of course, after white captures on h6, white pawns on the king side are unstoppable. There is nothing black can do. Of course, Bisguier resisted for a couple of more moves, but in this position he finally resigned. And now I recommend watching a game in which Robert Fischer created a romantic masterpiece by sacrificing 2 pawns, 2 pieces, and the exchange. But first, like this video and subscribe, as it's really helpful for the channel growth.